Hello and welcome to another Tabletop Games Blog Saturday review.
I got candy,
comes a shout. Taken aback, you look across the counter and see the eager and very happy face of the youngster staring up at you. Another sugar-loving customer has come to your amazing sweet shop to pick and mix their favorite delights. Below the face, on outstretched arms, cradled and cupped hands, are 16 Candies by Dickie Chapin from Envyborn Games. After having reviewed Defrag, one of the other games in the series, I was hopeful that 16 Candies would be on a par. Of course, the games are very different and designed by different people, which is good to see in a collection of games that you can buy together. Yet, for some reason, I thought there would be some sort of similarities. The third game in the Tiny Game series published by Envyborn Games, but the second game that I reviewed, 16 Candies, is a simple little card game about collecting the most sweets. On your turn, you can either draw the top card from the face-up discard pile, or the top card from the face-down draw deck. As you add the card to your hand, you orient it either end up, because each end has different candies on it. Then you discard a card from your hand to the face-up discard pile. Instead of drawing a card, you can just shout, "I've got candy," and reveal your hand. Then everyone else gets one more turn to try and beat your number of candies of the same type, shown at the top end of your cards. If nobody manages to get more candies than you gain 2 licorice pieces, otherwise you lose a certain number. Similarly, the other players lose licorice if they didn't beat your candies. At least in principle, that's how it works. The scoring is a bit more complicated than that, but ultimately, if you have no licorice left, you're out of the game, which continues until only one player has licorice in front of them. That's all simple enough and makes it the perfect family game that you can easily explain to pretty much anyone without too much trouble. You can even decide to play the first round with open hands in case anyone has any concerns. However, it's probably best to just go in and see how it goes. You'll definitely pick it up while you play. The illustrations are really fitting with bright, sickly sweet colors and a very cartoony style. Everything is bright and colorful, just like the sweets in a sweet shop. You can almost smell the chocolate buttons and hear the rustle of the plastic wrappers around the bold sweets. Unfortunately, there are a few things that make the game feel not quite developed enough. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. 16 Candies is clearly supposed to be a very simple game, offering a bit of fun for a relatively short amount of time. That's one of the issues I have though. While the rules are really simple, there's no specific time limit to a round, let alone the game overall. Players could easily keep drawing cards until they are confident that they have the most sweets. The game does have a specific rule to try and stop that from happening, but that rule feels like an afterthought to fix the problem. It's a rough edge that needed filing down. The other issue is player elimination. While that doesn't have to be a problem, in 16 Candies you will have to wait a fair amount of time before the game ends. So if you do lose your licorice, you probably just want to leave the table and play a different game, while the others carry on. Player elimination really only works for short games. The rules are also not quite refined, especially the scoring at the end of a round took a while to get used to. If you win, you get 2 licorice pieces, but if you lose, it depends on whether you have the most sweets or are in the middle. Sometimes you lose nothing, at other times you lose an amount of licorice based on what is printed on the cards you have in your hand. If you trigger the end of a round by calling "I've got candy" but don't end up having the most candy, you lose licorice in a similar way, but you lose an extra one or something like that. It took me a good few rounds to finally know how much licorice everyone would get or lose. Writing this review now, I've forgotten how it all works. I also couldn't quite work out what happens when someone ends a round on the special rule. I assume they gain 2 licorice while everyone else loses a certain amount based on the hand. That's how we played it, but it wasn't really clear to me. The rules also feel a bit long for a game of this type. I would expect maybe 1 or 2 rules and that's it. As I say, maybe I'm being a bit harsh and was spoiled by the joy that Defrag provided me with. Maybe I'm taking 16 Candies too seriously. I guess if you just play it for a little bit of fun, you'll really enjoy it. Maybe I just need to loosen up a bit. Anyway, if you're looking at the Kickstarter and are enticed by Defrag and curious about Sirens, which I've yet to review, then adding 16 Candies to the basket probably won't hurt. Just make sure you brush your teeth.
Thank you for listening to this Tabletop Games Blog Saturday Review podcast. Please check the description below for links mentioned in this episode, as well as to the written version of this article on the blog. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us some stars or leave a review. Please also tell your friends about me, and if you want to offer financial support, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi pages, links to which you'll find in the blog at tabletopgamesblog.com. So thank you again for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.
This podcast was made possible by the generous help of my supporters. Royal Patron Sean Newman, Magic Champion John Risley, Castle Guards David Miller and James Naylor, Dice Masters Alex Bardi, Paul Grogan and Robin Kay, and Shining Lights Jacob Davis, Gavin Jones, Sarah Reed and Richard Simpson.